When Laura Sugden and Shane Gilmer moved to a quaint hamlet in East Yorkshire, they anticipated a quiet life.
But things took a harrowing turn when a year-long feud with their next-door neighbour, Anthony Lawrence, ended in tragedy.
Well, Laura Sugden is joining us now to tell us this extraordinary story, which we're reading this morning and listening to what you were going to say yesterday, thinking, how the hell
Doesn't
can
seem
that
real.
happen? So here we go. So you met Shane when you were working for the council, and you say the honeymoon period between the two of you never really ended. It was always great fun. You've got your daughter Isabel, who thankfully, at the moment we're talking about, was away. You're in this sleepy village. Next door lives Anthony Lawrence. When did the debate and disagreement start with him?
Well, it kind of started over. There was never really a point where I think something started. But the main part was on the 13th of January the year before, in 2017, and he was playing loud music till about 11:30, 11:45, and Shane decided to go around and just ask him to turn it down. And at that point, Shane just went round the back. I stayed in the property because I'd never had any problems with him before. And then I heard a load of commotion outside. So I went outside and he basically had an axe and said that he was going to kill us. I just told Shane to come back inside and, just, leave it. Obviously, I was concerned, but just thought it was a bit out of the blue that just to ask somebody to turn their music down, it was a bit extreme.
Extreme reaction.
So we kind of talked about it that night when we got into bed, and Shane was, not massively concerned, but not as concerned as what I was. And I think the next day I managed to persuade him, after talking to colleagues at work, that we should really phone the police,
Yes.
which we did.
And so the reaction from the police, what happened next?
They more or less said that that it was our word against his, so they weren't prepared to really do anything at that time.
There's got to be more, hasn't there?
Yeah.
There has to be more. And then, which there eventually was. So he was. You had an issue with his cannabis use, a lot of cannabis and smoke coming into your house, and that sort of...
Yeah, it was you could just smell cannabis in my daughter's bedroom, and she suffered really badly at the time with her asthma.
Yeah.
That much so that I ended up moving into another bedroom, and it stopped.
Well, he was eventually served with an eviction notice, which was probably in his head was the triggering of this.
Yeah.
And so this particular night, you're out to a local restaurant, and you come home, you walk upstairs, and there's a mark on the bedroom carpet which wasn't there before, and you knew he was in the house.
Yeah, I just had a feeling that the week prior to him, the week prior to that, he never stayed away from home, and that week he was away, then he was back, and I'd expressed my concerns to Shane at the time and said, it's really strange behaviour, and Shane was like, oh, maybe he's moving somewhere. But I just felt really unsettled that week. And when we went out on the Friday, I didn't really want to go, but we did. But when I came back, obviously, I noticed the mark on my carpet. When I opened the door, I had a feeling that somebody was in my house, but it wasn't a feeling that somebody was in my house. It was a feeling that he was in my house, and I'm not really sure why I felt like that, but ever since the axe incident, exactly a year to this happening, I just felt on edge.
I'm not surprised. And so are you OK to talk about what happened in those moments?
Yeah. So obviously I opened pushed my daughter's bedroom door open to see
Which, thankfully, she wasn't there at the time.
Yeah, she was staying with her father. And he was stood there with what I now know as a crossbow and a head torch on. I basically just asked him, what are you doing in my house? He didn't actually say anything at that point, but I heard Shane heard, because I called him by his name. I said, Tony, what are you doing in my house? So Shane heard and started to move. You could tell that I could hear him moving to come upstairs. He pushed me back into my bedroom and pushed me onto my bed. Then he heard, obviously Shane had got to the top of the stairs by this point, so he went onto the landing to Shane, and I managed to get my telephone out of my pocket and call 999 and put my telephone back in my pocket before he came back into the room. Shane came in and he'd shot him, but I wasn't aware of that until I came back into the bedroom. There was a lot of... I was trying to reason with him, asking him, you know, why he was doing this.
You told him you were pregnant at the time? You were saying to him, I'm pregnant?
Yeah, he already knew, because he had been listening. He told us that he'd been listening to us for a year.
Through the wall?
Yeah, with a listening device. So...
How did that make you feel?
Sick. Yeah. Yeah, to think that, you know, there'll be a lot of conversations that me and Shane had, which, you know, you have in the privacy of your own home, that, you know, we were completely unaware, you know, but obviously the reporting of the cannabis to the police and the letting agent, he would have heard all that.
We should also say at this point, and this is the horrifying, terrifying part of the story, is you're in a semi-detached house. He's joined to your house, and the way he'd got into your house was taking the bricks out in his attic, the adjoining attic between the two houses, and he'd come in that way. So he was in your loft, and that's how he got in. So you're pleading with him. You know, you're 20 weeks pregnant. You've got your partner, who it turns out is critically injured on the floor, and then he shoots you.
Yeah, he then shot me in the head. I then got out of my side of the bed, and I pulled the bolt out of my head.
Why did you pull it out?
I don't know. It was just an instinct to, I just pulled it out and threw it to the floor.
But then he grabbed it and stuck it in your throat.
He came in with a second bolt once he heard that I was moving in the bedroom, and we had a bit of a scuffle on the floor, and he pushed the bolt into my neck.
How did you get away?
I actually managed to get over him. At one point, I overpowered him, and I had the bolt in my hand, but unfortunately, Shane would have been able to, but Shane wasn't able to move, so I couldn't have done it on my own.
You had to run. You had to get out. Shane couldn't move. It transpires that the bolt had gone through his arm, through his liver, into his kidney, but also into his spine as well. Yeah. And these were critical injuries. He died of a cardiac arrest when they got him to hospital, which we're so sorry about. But you had to get out of there. What were the last words that he said to you?
Be strong, I love you.
And get out to save the baby.
Yeah.
So you run down the road. He passes you, Lawrence passes you on the road in his car. Thankfully, you seek the safety of your neighbours.
Yeah.
And the police and the medical services arrived, and Shane is rushed to hospital, where he sadly passes away. And then there's a manhunt.
Yeah.
And two days later, he's found. He's taken an overdose in a caravan in Yorkshire, and he's dead.
Yeah.
But you say you wish you'd killed him yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's no justice. There wouldn't have been any justice if he'd have survived, if he'd have been here. I don't think prison would have been enough, and it certainly would have left me unsettled forever.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I just think I think I would have felt something more, you know, if I'd have been able to put that bolt in him at that time.
You said that the only thing that's helped you cope is the birth of your daughter.
Yeah.
And having her.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, she's incredible.
Your strength for just sitting here and being able to tell this story, I can't imagine how difficult this is for you. But also there is a really important reason that you're here today, and that is to talk about crossbows and how easily and readily they're available for people to be able to buy these lethal weapons that have destroyed your family.
Yeah, there's no regulations to have a crossbow. None whatsoever, and that's what my campaign is for, to get it to Parliament to basically to ensure that they have the same regulations as what it is to have a shotgun.
Yeah,
they're just as fatal. You know, they've caused a number of deaths and serious injuries. You know, they've ruined families, and you know, I'm not going to ever stop anybody being murdered ever again. That's not what I'm trying to do. There's not really a purpose for a crossbow to be had, and if there is, then what I'm trying to achieve is not going to prevent that from, you know, if somebody's got one for good reason, then that's not going to prevent them from having it. They just have to obtain a licence to get one.
It seems a very, very reasonable request for something that has utterly destroyed your family.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And how can you be supportive? Where do people find your campaign?
Yeah, just as many people, just please, everybody, just sign my campaign.
Yeah, which is where?
I need 100,000 signatures. It's on the UK Parliament website. I've shared the link everywhere, and all my family and friends are sharing it. So it's called #Shane'sLaw. So if anybody just looks for that on social media, they'll find it.
I'm sorry you're here under these circumstances, and we're deeply, deeply sorry.
Thank you.
But thank you for talking to us today, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you.